Before that moment that you went on the air and said, I have cancer, how difficult was it for you to go public?
It wasn't difficult to go public. It was difficult to get the diagnosis. I mean, I thought for sure I was going to die. I mean, I spent that whole weekend thinking, okay, well, this is it. You know, I mean, I've got these little kids, and I remember thinking, will my husband's second wife like the China that we have? That's what I thought. I thought I was going to die. I mean, you just hear breast cancer and you think, oh my God, it's over. My life's over. And then once you start to get those second opinions and you start to take charge of your own care, you start to feel stronger. And you say, screw that, no one's getting my China. It's my China, and I'm going to use it at Thanksgiving in 2020. You know, it's a process, though. And I think by going public, you can acknowledge those feelings, that it's okay to be scared.
Did you go into that warrior mode?
Eventually.
It helps, really.
It helps, but it's about somebody like a Dr. Ann Partridge, a trusted caregiver, saying to you, we've got a plan. And so when you'd say to Dr. Ann, I need to know, and I know my husband called her too and said, we need to know, is this going to turn out bad? There's no reason to think that. We've got a plan, and we're going to do surgery, and we're going to do chemotherapy, and then after that you're going to take a pill, and that there's a plan, and the plan should work. If it doesn't work, we'll come up with a new plan. So I think getting a sense that even if something horrific was going to come out of this, it wasn't going to happen in January of 2007, getting that in your head, that there's always a possibility something can turn out bad. You or I could cross the street and have something come out bad. But do we live like that, or do we live saying, chances are I'm going to cross the street fine? So I think when you diagnose, it's to say, chances are we'll get through this.
It does give you a new normal, though, forever.
Right.
I mean, do you still find people, you know, they haven't seen you for a while, and they see you and they say, how are you doing?
All the time, all the time. People still say, you know, I get hugs, I get all the time.
I mean, it's warm and lovely and awesome, but I mean, you've just kind of like figured out how to go on with your life and not be thinking about it all the time. But once you've gone public, and particularly if you really go public like you did with Kelley's story, I mean, literally videotaping every step of the way, it absolutely changes your normal.
It does. And I think that for all women that are getting past their treatment, the stage you're at really, you're very vulnerable. It's a very vulnerable place to be. And I think sometimes when people want to come up to you and they want to share a story, it's okay to kind of feel it out and see where they're going with it. Because if it's not going to end well, it's okay maybe to be a little rude. And I mean this for everybody, because we all have somebody that comes up to us, oh, my Aunt Sally, and then the story starts to go, and then you start to think, is this person really going to tell me about a horrible experience somebody that they knew had with breast cancer? I'll give you an example. I was working on a news story, trying to get back to my new normal, going to work and just doing regular news stories and doing my job as a TV news reporter. And a man came up to the truck, and he started to tell me the story about his wife dying of breast cancer, with details like at school, they finally had to call to say, why doesn't she talk about the mom? And it was as like, and that set me back for days. And I invited the connection. And when we share our stories in any way, on a blog or larger than that, you know, you invite a connection with people, but sometimes you do have to protect yourself from the treatments that people might want to suggest for you. Maybe even the caregivers.
All the crazy
a lot of
ideas.
alternative treatments that are, some sound good and some may not. And I think it's okay to protect yourself a little bit from that, because emotionally the onslaught, when people want to share so much with you, sometimes you have to say, I'm really sorry, I'm in a rush, I have to go right now, or I'm terribly sorry to hear that story, and we're praying for the best for your family and for ours. And
did you learn things, though, from...
And then there's the flip side, which is all the great
I learned a lot of stuff.
You learn a lot. And then you get hope, because people will tell you these stories. They'll say, well, my cancer came back, but that was 14 years ago. I've been living with stage 4 cancer. And you go, okay, that sounds all right. I can handle that. So people will tell you what you thought was the worst thing, that fear of recurrence. And then they'll uplift you, because they'll tell you, my cancer came back, but that was 14, 20 years ago. And you go, what? I didn't know that. Like, oh, you can live with stage 4 for that long? Okay. And then you even can get used to that idea. Like your worst fear, you go, okay, well, people are living with that. And if that happens, I'll be like that. I'll live with it, and I'll deal with it, and I can handle it.
Did you have a
get
fear of
stronger.
recurrence? It's so funny because I never even thought about it, and I remember I went on Access Hollywood, and they invited people to send in questions, and we only got through like 5 or 6 of them on the air, but they sent me the rest of them in case I wanted to answer people.
Right.
And there were like 6 of them that said, well, you're coming to the end now. How are you going to deal with the fear of recurrence? I was like, thanks.
I didn't even have a fear.
Hadn't even had that fear yet, but thank you very much for putting
Right.
that in my head.
Well, again, it's when you connect with people, you hear the best outcomes and you hear the
Yeah.
more challenging outcomes. So yes, I was definitely, because I would hear something.
Do you
and I would
eventually
think,
tuck it in your back
Yes.
pocket and just say, head up?
Yep, you eventually tuck it in your back pocket because there are lots of things to be afraid about. It's just like after 9/11 and you didn't want to get on a plane. Then you learned to fly again because you wanted to go places. So I think once you're done with treatment and you think about recurrence, you think, okay, I could spend a lot of time worrying about that. I can't do anything about it. Or I could just live because I want to live and I want to see the next baby born in my family and I want to be a grandmother and all those things that most people take for granted. And when you've diagnosed with breast cancer and you get through treatment, you don't always take those things for granted. But why not be positive and believe you're going to be among the many, many women who beat this?